Susan Ridge with Energy, Minerals, and Natural Resources Forestry.
Mary Ewell, BLM.
Press.
No, it's not. No. Chuck Jones here at the Albuquerque Weather Office. We got quite a crew here. John and Molly from the Office of the State Engineers. Amanda, one of our intern forecasters here. Sean Bennett, the MIC. And we even have some media type people here. Channel 4 here. Channel 4 here in Albuquerque.
Anybody else?
Curtis McFadden, Army Corps of Engineers.
Hey, Curtis.
Dave Noble, National Weather Service, El Paso.
Welcome, Dave.
Thank you.
Dave, I think I was talking with someone when Susan was also introducing herself. This is Mary Ewell from the BLM.
Hey, Mary.
Hello.
I'm anybody else? All right, I'm going to do a little experiment. Does anybody mind if I record this go-to meeting? Anybody object to that? No?
Only if I really screw it up.
Promise not to use it for political purposes.
No. They're just for
Religious
for folks who can't make this, and I'll have to decide. I know other because we have other drought meetings and webinars that we've posted in the past on the web. That for folks who can't make the meeting, so I'm doing an experiment to see if that will even work from here, because I don't have the go-to software. But all right, well, welcome everybody. I think everybody see Chuck's PowerPoint up on their screen. If you don't, let me know. Okay, so let's get started with Chuck's PowerPoint. Go ahead, Chuck.
Thanks, Dave. Welcome, everybody. I'm going to start off here with a little funny. And we just, how bad is the drought? It's pretty bad, even though it's having trouble getting any rain to fall. So. All right, now for the gory details. February turned out 61% of normal across the state. And you can see the one area that did well was northeast and east central New Mexico. A lot of that, I believe, fell from the blizzard there on the 24th of February. They did pretty good over there, but unfortunately, above normal in February is different than above normal in June or July or August. So, not getting too excited quite yet. Did rank as the 49th driest out of 119 years, so not bad, but not horrible. And for January and February combined, January was 69%. Thus, we have a statewide average of 65% for the first 2 months of the year. Look at this: 129% of normal over the northeast and east central plains here. Something to get excited about. Southeast plains, 82%. So the east has done pretty well so far this year. The rest of the state not well at all, and especially the southern deserts, the central highlands, and up into here in the Rio Grande Valley, only 35 to 45% of normal. So how's that rank? 56th driest, pretty much in the middle of the pack here. So it's not horrible for this first 2 months of the year. We're holding our own in terms of the snowpack and precipitation, but we're not. We could certainly do a lot better. We add in the winter, December through February, we're at the 65th driest. So again, that's not too bad compared to what we've seen the past couple of years, anyway. But for the water year, we throw in October, November, so we have a 5-month period now, October of 2012 through February of 2013, 51%, so we're just barely above half. Northwest Plateau and the Northeast Plains has done the best, if you can call it the best, up around 2/3 of normal. And then again, the middle and southern parts of the state are doing the worst, with, in the 25 to 30% range. And how does that rank? Well, it's the 22nd driest, so that's not very good. We're averaging over 1 1/4 inches below normal on a statewide average. Temperature-wise, pretty close to normal, like just 0.2 degrees above normal. The last few months, we've been looking at 12-month and 24-month precipitation ranks, and we'll do that again just to keep you all depressed. Over the past 12 months, March 2012 through February 2013, second driest on record. Again, only the late 50s has done worse. Same thing for the 24-month period. We go back all the way to March of 2011, second only to the 56, 57 period here. Just inching out to early 1900s. It's almost funny, huh? Inching out. Well, let's look at March. How are we doing? We had a good storm there on the 8th into the early part of the 10th. We didn't put a lot of dent in the precipitation deficits, and the snowpacks came up, just a few percent. So we're holding our own, but it hasn't really, improved the things in the long term. The latest drought outlook came out a couple of years ago. A couple of days ago. Not much different than we saw actually last month. A lot of extreme to exceptional drought in the northeast, central, and east central portions of the state. Virtually everywhere else is moderate to severe drought. You can see 98.5% of the state is in moderate or worse drought. And there was very little difference from last month, except for this heart-shaped, sideways heart-shaped area centered in San Miguel County here has worsened to exceptional drought. 2 months change. Again, the Northwest we've seen has fared a little better, but a large area of the center part of New Mexico has worsened. And we still have our little break down here in the far southeast. Yeah.
Can I ask questions at the end?
Sorry, go ahead now.
The question I have is, when we saw the precip charts earlier, the area that seemed to be hit the hardest was Doña Ana County, Sierra. And here we're saying, heck, Doña Ana County is only in the southern part, it's only in a moderate drought, and really none of it's really in an extreme. But we saw some areas that were like 20 percentile at precip. Is there just a disconnect there, or is it just because it's so normally dry down there, it just doesn't matter, or how does that all play in?
My guess is that normal precipitation is probably 1/3 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch down there, so it doesn't make a big impact this time of the year. No, I know our averages are only around 1/2 inch, a little under. I think they're even less down there.
Yeah, we're down near a third, somewhere around in March is in about 0.2 for Las Cruces.
That means you've gotten like nothing.
Right. Yeah, we like here in for February we only had 0.08 inches.
And I guess the reason why I'm asking is that that's a major agricultural area. You've got a lot of perennial crops down there, and so is the pumping that you're going to expect to see to keep the is there going to be increase in pumping because you're not getting that 1 or 2 storms, and should that be reflected in this monitor in any way? I'm just asking. I mean, it doesn't matter to me. You guys are the experts, but it just seems to me that if I was to talk to somebody down, kind of right there near El Paso, if you guys were in a moderate drought, I would be really shocked to hear if they all said, "Oh yeah, no, it's just moderate down here."
We got our intra-rain the last 5 months.
Just seems sort of counterintuitive. Well, thanks, sorry.
That's a severe drought classification anyway, so it's not the exceptional, but
I thought
So this is moderate here,
I'm
and
looking-
this is exceptional.
you've got
down there is where you're talking about?
Yeah, right here.
Yeah, that's like right where El Paso is. So that area in there is, you've got a pretty good agricultural area right along the border there. There's a lot of alfalfa, a lot of pecans, that kind of thing. And that's the area where I'm really kind of surprised that that would be moderate and not at least severe.
Yeah, we actually don't, we have some input into these maps, but we actually don't do them.
Right. No, I know that, but I just, something that maybe bring up with them just to see why. I'd be curious what their comment back would be for how dry it is in that area, and because of the agriculture that's there, why they only consider that particularly southern part of Gilligan County moderate.
So let's look at the future and what it holds, since the past and current's not all that great. Broken record here. Precipitation outlook for New Mexico. Odds are tilting slightly toward being below normal for the month of April. With a better connection maybe west of here in Arizona and California. Go back one. Should be seeing the temperature outlook now, very strong tendency here for above normal temperatures, more likely than normal or below normal. We've seen that for month after month here. Interesting looking April through June, i.e. basically the springtime. Center part of New Mexico from northwest to southeast. Again, the odds are tilting toward below normal precipitation, with actually equal chances down here in the southwest, the Blue Hills. But again, extremely strong tendency toward above normal temperatures for the spring period, April through June. And we've seen, this is the latest from CPC, the conditions still look like INSO neutral right through the spring and summer, if not beyond that now. And next slide that you'll see is just another way of looking at it. This is the probabilistic forecast, INSO forecast. Obviously right now, odds are strongly in favor of neutral conditions through the summer and then even into the fall. Note the climatology here, though, where La Nina and El Nino, compared to neutral conditions in the spring and summer, typically we see the neutral conditions much more often, but as we get into the fall and winter season, La Nina or El Nino become a little bit more likely than neutral conditions. Whereas the forecast here is for the neutral conditions to stay probably more likely than La Nina or El Nino, right into through the fall and maybe even to the winter.
I want to say something here, because I have put together a presentation based on last month's forecast, and there's a couple of caveats. The forecasts that come out of this plume-based probabilistic forecast don't have as much skill coming out in the winter time in this period we're looking at than they do for the fall coming up than they do when we get into the summer. So the skill is pretty limited in this picture, and even it's reflecting, because if you were to compare this chart based on February, this has changed. In February they had the neutral kind of waning, and they had almost a tie between El Nino and La Nina. Okay, and now it shows La Nina probabilistically growing, although the dominant feature is neutral. Okay? And so we're not as good at reading the tea leaves in the wintertime with these skills. The skill of the models that go in for that period is not as good. It's very highly favored for the neutral to continue through the rest of the year. But we're trying to see if there's anything out there that could help us.
Yeah.
And it previously looked like we would get, perhaps there was an inkling that we could get some help. And again, neutral doesn't tell us much either, because neutral usually, and he's going to probably show it, but usually leads to a equal chances probabilistically of the precipitation, which means if you want to put a positive spin on it, it means there's 2/3 of that, means that it's either normal or above, and 1/3 is below. But right now, so, there's not much we can extract from here. Take this with a grain of salt. When we go back in, when we get into June, July, then we'll have a better handle on this.
Dave, were you going to say something? Or?
No, that's Sean put it very well. I think I always look at the far all the way toward the right on all these probabilistic is pretty sketchy anyway. But it's more of the trend. Where is it going from now? Because I haven't seen any big discussions about the long term. What's going on. Either because if you look at the previous slide, all of the models are in pretty good agreement though. They're all fairly flat. There's a couple outliers, but there's really nothing. Even the statistical models.
But I want to add something else on this chart as well. There's a mob that it's highlighted in the legend as CPC Con. That's the consensus of the people, the human beings making forecasts. And you see what they're edging towards. They're edging towards La Nina, or at least in the neutrals, continuing in neutral, but you see minus 0.5 is anything below that is supposed to be La Nina. So their look and their reading of things says that we're not heading towards El Nino. We're heading in the neutral, and then way out there, they're actually putting it towards La Nina, which is not good for us.
Not good.
There's an understatement.
So, but still, overall, this is skill at this time of the year is not as good as when we get into the summer. So let's keep our fingers and toes and everything crossed. We need some help. All right. Sorry.
No problem. So what can we expect here? The drought's going to persist. And that'll be the case for the spring, and even if we get normal precip, we're still looking at similar conditions here. We have to get well above normal in the spring in order to break a lot of this drought here. And below normal snowfall overall over New Mexico and southern Colorado. We're still looking at a likelihood of a spring runoff below normal water coming into the rivers. And then the seasonal drought look for through June, persistent drought where it exists and possible development down in the far southeast, New Mexico, and out here in Arizona as well. Now, I just had to throw this next slide in since my name was on there. And I promise you I'll tell you if we see anything like this coming. So. Any questions?
I have a question off topic a little bit, but one of the things that I think we also worry about in the next couple months is wind. And we've got the great CPC precip, got the great PCP or CPC temperature outlooks. Is there a product that you guys could recommend, and maybe you can't answer now, that gives us wind outlooks, 6, 10 days, 12, 4, or 8, 14 day, or anything like that. To just what are the outlooks of wind in sort of some sort of longer range kind of view, or is that we're just not there yet kind of thing?
I'm not aware of any forecast, but we do have.
They have an 8 to 14 day threat outlook, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And specifically extracting out above, below normal wind during that, I don't think we could probably come up with something, but you're asking a pertinent question. As we go through the spring into the summer, do we expect a lot of these dry wind
Storms like we're
as
expecting
I
tomorrow
would
kind of
say,
thing.
desiccating,
Well, yeah.
add more dryness to the, and we, again, going back to the briefing, the pattern suggests that we have two kinds of patterns that could bring us wind. We could have, and we've had both during this season coming in. We have a new trough coming in, it's going to get colder and all that. That's one. But this brings a lot of wind in with it as well. You can have a straight wind, a westerly pattern of wind, and I'm talking about winds aloft that bring down to the surface, or you can have a southwesterly pattern of wind. Both of them bring dry. So are we going to have a above normal wind season? I'd say I wouldn't go for the above normal. I'd say about what we expect to see.
Okay.
There's not going to be any help there because we'll get more wind than we'll get precip. And the other part of the problem is, that's a good question as well, because the other part of the problem is dust.
Right.
We didn't show the graphic, but the soil moistures are very dry. So without the moisture, in the soils, it's more likely the dust will fly. So even if we didn't get a lot of extremely high wind, still going to get dust flying.
Yeah.
And so that adds a lot of other aspects to the problem. So yeah, we're going to get some winds with generating big dust coming through. We've already had it just the other day. Yesterday, we're going to have it here this next couple of days. And the down south even worse because they're even drier in soils, but all across the state.
Because then that impacts the ETs, which impacts ag,
All of that
impacts
stuff.
demand,
Absolutely.
which sort of, it's that death spiral.
Vicious
thing.
So,
Vicious cycle.
and hydrologically speaking, if we could get some big storm, think of the components. A lot of that moisture's got to go into the soil before it's going to go into the river.
Right.
So it's not going to help with river runoff too much until we can fill up the deficit in the soil. And so we need to change
water.
that cartoon from drought from the northern to rain expected, But for now, there's not much help out there.
Well, if you guys think of anything that's a good kind of, because the state engineer wants me to keep on top of this, the wind is obviously a big deal. I know the fire guys, you guys have got a great product you're working on where you're trying to get those critical, we're using the MODIS satellite to track dust and something else, and that's fascinating, and that's sort of, I'm almost wondering if that's even a good sort of product for the near, your 48-hour kind of deal, but it's just how does that play out over the, just to have a 6 to 10 day to 14 day would be interesting.
Yeah,
Something to think about.
Yeah, John, that's one part of our Department of Health project is we're evaluating the existing dust models out there, and there's a handful that are operational, both out of NOAA and then also the Department of the NAPS model. It's a Navy model, and we're working with the University of Arizona on another one, and the NAPS model has actually been working really well, and it gives you a prediction of dust, surface and column, and it gives it for I think 5-day forecast, and it's been really really good to look at the impacts. Both and it's a global model, so it's just looking at we can look at the northeast or northwest, southwest part of the state, and I could forward that, and it zooms in on the southwest U.S. May be useful, and then also the Albuquerque office is running the ET model, and I think you guys are still running that, as far as I know.
Yeah, yes.
So that would be useful because that goes out the full forecast, right, of what you guys do in your graphics.
Yeah. We have a evapotranspiration grid that we.
Yeah. So that'd be actually good to
Also, you might want to mention your symposium coming up with ads.
Yeah. Actually, what I can do is I can forward that to the group. We're putting together a air quality symposium in Las Cruces at April 22 and 23, and we're going to talk about this. We're bringing a lot of people together, not only the health but also the welfare. In terms of society impacts affecting transportation, public safety, emergency management. So, we're going to talk about a lot of these things. So, I'll send out a flyer to the group.
Where is it?
It's in Las Cruces, and we're also going to have it online as well. So if you can't make the drive down, we'll put it. You sign up, and then you can get online. And you can. I think you can even ask questions. All right. Any more questions? Any questions for Chuck in the forecasts or anything to deal with seasonal forecasts or near term? All right. So let's move on to Ray, Bureau of Reclamation.
Ready?
Yep.
Sure. Okay, I'll start on the Rio Grande storages on the reservoirs. Patoro is 8810 acre feet. Heron is 140,861. Elvado 25,538. Abiquiu 170,983. Cochiti 48,563. Elephant Butte 217,730. Caballo 10,548. Pecos, Santa Rosa is 2831. Sumner 6350. Brantley 11,033 acre feet. So irrigating on the Rio Grande, they're doing pretty tight rotation. Start off that way, and they're going to continue that way through the whole season and just try to get as far as they can. We're doing some pumping already down south of the river, south of Santa Casia, try to augment flows there. One thing we heard is that Colorado may be already finalizing their deliveries to New Mexico, so they may shut off what they're sending down, which means about 400 CFS. So you take 400 out of the system, that's going to hit us pretty hard. Pecos, we made a block release. PID made a block release to Brantley. They released about 4,000 acre feet from Santa Rosa and about 8,000 from Sumner. The water's still trickling into Brantley. And FSID is watering, and CID is still waiting for the calls to build up, and then when they do get enough calls for water, they'll start a little block release or a little irrigation release out of Brantley, get them water. They usually do that in about a 2-week period, shut off, and then wait for orders to come in again. So otherwise, the block release re-wet the whole river, which is nice, and we're working on a fallowing agreement with FSID, and we should be finalizing that in this next week. So depending on how many people sign up, we'll get that amount of water, and we'll be bypassing that there at the Sandgate Weir below their diversions, and that'll be going into the river to augment flows. So otherwise, we're just holding on and see what the season brings. Unfortunately, the La Nina trend is definitely going to take a toll again. But otherwise, we're carrying on as normal. Any questions?
Just a quick question. When do you expect the Rio Grande project to start moving water, and when are you going to do the Mexico release?
That's out of our El Paso office. We don't handle that here.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
You have a
I
sense?
can't tell you that.
You don't have a sense of when they're going to fire up the system down there?
Yeah, I'm not sure how they're going to do it this year. You mentioned pumping. I'm not sure if they're going to start off with that first or hold off on their stored water or not. Yeah, sorry, I can't tell you how they're going to manage it this year.
This is Curtis. They might actually delay their water releases out of Elephant Butte because of a lack of water there. But the exact time, just kind of like what Ray is saying, it's out of the El Paso office.
Yeah.
John, this is John Fleck. Just to jump in, I was down at EBID last week, and the board got a report that said probably 1st of July for the start of Rio Grande project releases out of Elephant Butte, if that's helpful.
Yeah.
Did that include EP number 1, or is that just for
They were
EBID?
their plan at this point was to do everybody at the same time, not to do the early Mexico release this year like they did last year.
So 1st of July right now is what they're talking about
Yeah.
for surface water releases for the project.
The project, right?
Thanks, John.
Yeah, they're hurting down there.
Well, hope you're not trying to plant cotton.
Yeah, they were also, John. They were talking about a 6-inch allocation.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
Yeah, to put that kind of in perspective, the 0.4 inch for CID per acre.
Point 4?
0.4 foot, right?
0.4 foot.
Feet?
Okay.
Yeah, 0.4 acre feet per acre.
Okay. Got it. Okay. Any more questions for Ray? All right. Thank you, Ray. I didn't know. I haven't heard anything from Wayne. I didn't see him on the roll call. And Chuck? Did you get anything from Wayne? NRCS Snowtel.
As of minutes before the start of the meeting, I did not get anything from him.
He's hiding. Right, yeah, he's out looking for snow.
He hasn't found it yet.
He's not allowed to come back until he finds it.
But yeah, I just pulled up the New Mexico map and from the NRCS, and for snow water equivalent. And the map I have is actually from yesterday, but seeing the snow water equivalents ranging in northern New Mexico in the basins from 82 in the Cimarron to 44 in the Jemez basin. So I've been seeing this slow decline because there hasn't been any major storms to add to that. The Rio Hondo is at 41% of the median. So it's been and it looked like I was looking at the if you look at all the Snowtel snow water equivalents for all the Rio Grande Basin, it almost looked like it's starting to peak right around, and it's sort of like right around April 1st is sort of the peak. I think, is that right? For some of the years. And I mean, we're still well below the 2012.
It is Longworth. I think anywhere from the 1st through the mid-April is really when you see the peak.
1st through mid-April, yeah.
I've started looking at some individual sites. I'm sorry I'm not going to be able to present today. Just got hammered this session, and we're still trying to catch up. But I'll get my report out hopefully next week. But there's, some of the stations are holding steady, the further north you get, basically. Some of the lower elevation stations look like they've peaked and are starting to come down.
Yeah.
Almost universally, we're seeing, the highest I think we've got is an 80%, and that's probably up in the San Juan.
Right.
But when you start looking at the Pecos, I think the Pecos is the one that really stood out for me. They're talking about like 80% of runoff of last year.
Yeah.
So I just, or it's 80% of normal, and then like 80% of what was last year. So it's that one really stood out to me in terms of runoff being particularly notable in terms of it's, not really providing a whole lot of help, but hopefully there'll be something. And of course, we can remember from last year we saw record low flows into Santa Rosa. So that's certainly not good news. On the Rio Grande, and Ray, maybe you can correct me, I'm sure you're more familiar with it, is I think they're looking at something around, I don't remember what Ottawa was at or what it was at. So I want to say between 50 and maybe higher than 50, 70 even. But the key one into Elephant Butte was something around 39%. I don't think that's changed much. So that's clearly a big question. That goes to probably John's remark about 6 inches. They're, I think, looking at a pretty low inflow to Elephant Butte. But, some of the lower elevation and lower latitude stations are really starting to run out. I mean, I think we're seeing some have run out already. But again, that was a cursory review yesterday evening, and so I apologize for not having the actual numbers. But unless anybody has a call,
we're seeing the snow cell sites already melt out, and we're not seeing anything really.
Yeah.
You see some snow cell sites melt out?
Yeah, well, like one side on the Hemis, it's pretty much gone.
Yeah.
Right?
They lost about
that's what.
week, and then there's no runoff.
Yeah, it's normally the Hemis kind of like props us up at this time of the season. It's usually the first one, and it kind of keeps us through the Middle Valley, kind of helps us out, and we didn't get any. So far, I mean, it's melting out. We're not seeing anything that, and like I said, we got this cut coming from Colorado, and normally the Hemis would be there to help us, but they're melting off, and we're not really seeing it here. No relief on that.
No, I appreciate you saying that, Ray, because that's kind of what I remembered seeing from the Hemis. Is some of the stations are out. I mean, they're done. They're
and we're just hoping that Liz or like Wesner for the Pecos, they don't do that for us too. I mean, but it could be what happens. I mean, we saw that the last couple of years at Santa Rosa.
Yeah, Wesner looks like it's already peaked, if I remember.
Yeah,
It looks like it's starting to come down.
Right.
Yeah, it's acting like a 2011 hydrograph. This is Curtis at the Army Corps. Yeah, Western Springs has peaked, and it's starting to slightly drop. And so I'm expecting 6,000 acre feet or even less of water coming into Santa Rosa this year, because the conditions are so low, and Western Springs has already peaked. And as for Sierra Blanca, it's already coming down. It's running off right now. It's got 3.4 snow water equivalent inches up there on their snow tail, and it's dropping quick.
Yeah, and then you got Pecos that's like 29 CFS, San Francisco 5, Cañada de Buta up north 0. So where's it going? It's just not even getting to those sites, much less Santa Rosa. It's really, I guess the ground story, everything's just so dry, it's sucking it up before it gets to the tributaries.
Yeah.
We're above Santa Rosa gauge. We're supposed to be around 20 CFS. We're only seeing 1 CFS influence, so it's pretty dry up there. Ray is just exactly right on this. It's so dry.
We're going to have a pretty good blow this weekend, too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I appreciate everybody's input on that. I'm sure Wayne's actively looking for snow.
All right. Okay, I think we've got Anne Marie's graphic up on GoTo. So are you still on, Anne Marie?
I am.
Great. Go ahead.
Okay. This is a USGS report on stream flow conditions for the 2013 water year. So we're looking at October of last year to the end of February of this year. It's not including anything in March. And this is average stream flow as cumulative average for the water year compared to the historical average for each of these sites. We're looking at 21 New Mexico river basins, and the sites were chosen to represent basins that are relatively unmanaged flow in New Mexico, so they're not evenly distributed, but were chosen for the fact that they represent somewhat natural conditions. If you look at the explanation, the below normal goes from 89% and lower. We don't have anything in the mid-range. That would be 90 to 110%. And if we had any blue dots, they would be greater, 111% or greater. As you can see from the graphic, all 21 of the river basins are below historical average and have been that way for a really long time. The low is about 1% and the high is 89% of historical average. And the median is 50% for the 21 basins. So we've got half of them above 50% of average and half below that. To summarize it by basin, the San Juan River Basin is represented by the Animas River Station, which is number 19. This is at 59% of historical average, and that's the same as it was last month. Upper Rio Grande tributaries, numbers 7 through 12, are 50 to 81% of average. The high one is number 11, Rio Ojo Caliente at La Madera, and that's the one that's at 81%. Jemez River is number 13, 53% of average, actually up a few percent from last month. Upper Rio Grande main stem, number 9, the Rio Grande at Taos Junction Bridge, 50% of historical average, down from 62% last month. Moving on to the Canadian River Basin, the tributaries in Colfax County, numbers 1, 2, and 3, 15 to 63% of average. In Mora County, numbers 5 and 6, 10 to 22% of average. And the main stem, number 4, is at about 1% of historic average for that particular gauge. The Upper Pecos in San Miguel County, numbers 14, which is Pecos River at Pecos, and 15, Gallinas at Montezuma, are at 70 and 34% of average. Pecos about the same as last month, and Gallinas at Montezuma was actually at 83% last month, so it's down considerably. Lower Pecos in Otero and Eddy counties, 16, 17, and 18, 16 to 50% of average, slightly greater than what we had at the end of January. The last two in the Gila Basin, Grants County, Site 21, Mogollon Creek, is at 33%, which is about what it was last month. And 21, the Gila River at Red Rock, is at 39%, which is just slightly higher than it was last month. And that's what I have, unless there's any questions. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Anne Marie. Okay, let's move on to John or Molly. State Engineers Report.
Well, we don't have a whole lot. We've been stuck in legislative session, or I've been stuck in legislative session pretty much to the bitter end. So our report isn't, we don't have a chance to pull up our report, so apologize for that. We'll definitely have it next week, or next meeting. I guess, just to give everybody a sense of, sort of the water side of the legislature, we've got a lot of press on here, so I'm sure they've done a good job of reporting what's going on. From our perspective, there's two bills that went through that are at the governor's desk related to subdivisions. Those Peter Wirtz bills. Those are interesting bills insofar as they seem to be bringing a little bit more attention to some of the issues related to domestic wells and ensuring water supplies for new subdivisions. And then there's a handful of memorials that got through. Probably the most notable one for this group, I would say, and I'd recommend everybody take a look at it, is Senate Joint Memorial 55. That's Mary Kay Papin, and they're doing drought meetings in Socorro, Elephant Butte, and Las Cruces. Dates yet to be determined. I suspect, Dave, you'll be called on for some of those meetings. Maybe some of us in this group. Chuck, maybe you'll be called down. That one's probably the most notable for this group. A lot of talk about watershed health, but don't really know if there's much in terms of the way of budget or anything like that. I think that's gives that thumbnail sketch is sort of what I've been doing for the last 60 days. So, but the Senate Joint Memorial 55 again, that's there's going to be a subcommittee developed to talk about various drought issues. That's probably the biggest one that I think people would want to be aware of for this group. I guess the other aspect is on the Pecos. The Interstate Stream Commission continues to be pumping, but the reality is we're getting towards the end of what we are allocated for our 5-year period. Number one. Number two, we're really not seeing, the wells haven't responded as well as we hoped from the winter, maybe coming back. So we're going to be quite a ways off from hitting our target for the settlement. And it's my best understanding right now that we likely are going to see some action coming from the Carlsbad Irrigation District to try to get some more water. And what that will ultimately look like is remains to be seen, but that certainly could become another area, another hot spot, so to speak. I mean, that's what we've got. I apologize again for not having our report ready for today. We were basically 24/7 sessions up until Saturday, and it takes 2 days to recover. So next April we'll certainly have our report up and going, and we'll have a better sense of what the runoffs look like. So anyway, thanks. If there's any questions, let me know.
And there's also a drought task force meeting scheduled. Is that correct? In beginning of April?
Oh, thanks, Dave, for bringing that up. There had been a drought task force meeting scheduled for April 5th. That meeting has been postponed.
Oh, okay.
No date at this point in time.
Good to know.
So yeah. When we get that, we'll send it out.
Okay, great.
Get the report from, I don't know when Molly, we did a report from our last meeting. We got our impact assessment report into the committee, and I think they're assessing it. The last committee meeting, we had a really good representation from NRCS, so a lot of the different programs that they're trying to do. Of course, there's the sequestration, not really seeing a farm bill. There's I think the programs available for agricultural community are less and less. Is sort of the message we got from them. There are some though. So anyway.
There's a Rio Grande runoff meeting April 16th here in Albuquerque at the NRCS.
Where that's at the NRCS office?
Yes.
Okay. Good to know. Any more questions for John or Molly? All right. I don't think Les is on, right? I didn't hear him. He sent me an email on Thursday. He's saying he had something else going on. He had a couple points he wanted to share. He says it's still dry. 2013 USDA January beef cattle inventory set another record low this year at 390,000. Surface water outlook for irrigated crop production looks terrible. So that was the only two things he shared with me that he wanted to say at the meeting. So other than that, I can we'll have him on the April meeting. And I don't think. Yeah, go ahead.
It sounds like everyone else's reports. Looks terrible.
Yeah. I didn't hear Joylyn or Emelita on with Farm Service Agency. Is that correct? No, I didn't think so. So I guess I'll open it up for any other questions. If anybody has any other announcements, any meetings going on that our group needs to know about. Okay, I hear silence, so nobody has anything. Okay. So I think let's talk about our next call in April. So get your calendars out. I believe the CPC outlooks will come out on the 18th. Is that right?
That's right.
Chuck and Sean. Okay. So do you guys like the Fridays? Because we could do the day after. That'll give us enough time to let things sink in and finish our reports. So like, what about April 19th, 10 a.m.?
Should work for me.
That work for everybody or most everybody?
That works for me.
Okay.
That'll be okay.
So we're at
Stay awake after midnight.
You finish on midnight? Is that what you said, Chuck?
I'm working till 8 a.m. that morning.
I'm also off then.
What about the 23rd? Because I can't make the 19th.
Oh, you can't?
That's better for me.
That is the same time as our air quality symposium. I'm not going to be available on the 22nd or 23rd. How about the 24th?
Good.
Sounds good.
24th? That's a Wednesday morning, 10 a.m. April 24th.
Okay.
Okay. I don't hear any objections to their next call at Wednesday, April 24th, 10 a.m. Same place. Okay. Last call for anything else that you burning to tell. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, and hopefully we'll get some snow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Or rain. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thanks, bye. Thanks, Dave.
Basketball, so.